The following is a presentation of Team Bonding, providing more than 100 live, virtual, or hybrid corporate team building activities for companies around the world. Visit teambonding.com to schedule your event now.
Hello again, my team. It's me, Rich Rinnensland, and I'm welcoming you to Team Building Around the World, the podcast where I speak to people from the team building, team bonding industry from all over the globe. Today, I have a very special guest coming to us all the way from the Asia Pacific, Mr. David Powell, the Managing Director of Asia Ability Malaysia and Asia Ability Training in Singapore. Very exciting. Also, of course, before we get to David, I do want to take a second and send some love out to my supporters. This show is being supported by the Catalyst Team Building Network. Find out more about the world's largest network of team building providers at catalystglobal.com. We also want to thank our friends at B1G1, which can make your business a real force for good. Visit b1g1.com to get started. And now, everyone, again, I'm very excited to meet this gentleman. He comes to us with 20 years of experience in the team building field. He's the managing director, as I said, of Asia Ability, and just an accomplished leader and facilitator with years and years of experience. Please join me in welcoming to the show Mr. David Powell, everyone. David, don't worry about that. That's just a small group of people I keep chained up under my desk for just such occasions.
Perfect. Great to meet them all and yourself.
How are you doing today?
Very good, thank you. Yes, I'm in Borneo in Malaysia, so it's evening time for me. And yes, I'm very happy to be with you and share a few thoughts about the team building, team bonding world.
Fantastic. I've always wanted to know, what's the weather like on the other side of the world?
It's always hot and a little bit sticky here, but we love it.
Well, we're getting into summer here, so we kind of have the same thing. I'm in New England, so
nice.
There's a lot of similarities.
Sure.
All right, so please, David, feel free. Go ahead and tell my team all about yourself.
Sure. Well, actually, my background is sort of the opposite end of the world as well. I'm originally from Wales in the UK.
Oh, lovely.
But for the last 25 years, I've actually been living, working, and building teams here in Southeast Asia. And I really am fortunate enough to live in a really beautiful place and a very sort of incredible place called Borneo, the third biggest island in the world. And we've got great biodiversity hotspots with jungles and mountains and rivers and coral reefs and all that wonderful stuff.
Fantastic.
And so I'm lucky to live here with my family and sort of build our Asian teams from here.
Great. Now, what brings what year did you actually move to Borneo?
I think it's about 25 years ago I came, and it's an interesting story about why I'm here in Borneo. I mean, I was a young man traveling around the world, working, in sort of outdoor activities and team stuff in different places, and ended up coming to Borneo to do actually a rather sort of crazy expedition across Borneo, which, as I said, is this massive landmass.
Yeah.
And is this. Basically, the equator runs across the southern part of Borneo, which is now called Kalimantan. So myself and this other guy decided, actually, we wanted to follow the equator across this island. So we spent 8 weeks on the rivers and the jungles crossing Borneo.
That's exciting.
So that was the first sort of full-on initiation to life here.
Have you always been that kind of adventurous spirit?
I was, definitely. I mean, I'm getting on a bit now, so not so much anymore. But yes, that was what my background was, and I very much love it. And it was interesting because it's very much about, how your life, flips or changes. I mean, after that jungle expedition, I came to the northern part of Borneo Sabah, where I live now, and actually climbed there's a 4,000-meter mountain. I climbed up the mountain, was spending some time in this little climbing hut on top of the mountain and read about an Outward Bound school, which is down near the coast. And obviously Outward Bound I knew about and I'd been involved with before is almost a foundation of team building in the world.
Right.
And here there was one in Borneo. So, of course, when I finally came down the mountain with my sore legs and visited the Outward Bound school down on the beach, and there was an old British guy actually running the place then, and it's so long ago, they used to call them wardens and not directors back in the old day of schools. And so he said, do you want to stay and volunteer for a while and help us and, train some of our local instructors? And there I saw this beautiful white beach in front, and I thought, I think I could do this. So
yeah, that must have been a hard choice for you.
Absolutely. A tough choice, but yes, okay. So there I got my bag and moved in.
So staying in that school of thought, can you explain to my audience who may not know exactly what was Outward Bound like in those days?
Yeah, interesting. Outbound was, it's very much about usually young people, but they're doing sort of, self-development training through outdoor activities. And it was quite tough or hard in those days. And you were supposed to get very wet and get very cold and sleep out for 4 nights in a row and, be exhausted and all those things to make yourself a better person. And it really was, the start of all this stuff that we all still do. And I think if you sort of follow the evolution of team building and corporate training, it almost all leads back to people who are deeply involved in the outward bound around the world. And there still is outward bound schools all over the world, including the US and all over the world. So it still goes on.
Excellent.
Obviously, we've all sort of, many of us have taken it in a slightly different direction since those days. And that's sort of where we are today.
So let's go into that direction. What kind of changes did you implement out there?
Well, interesting. There's a few things. Basically, after a number of years of doing that and doing the sort of personal development for young people, which I still love, and I actually still have another organization that focuses on that. Mm-hmm. But then I got more involved in the sort of the corporate world of facilitation of the development of teams and corporate teams and organizational teams. And that's become my passion ever since then. And the difference is, corporate teams don't have, usually have 7 days or 10 days to go off and do an expedition to develop themselves. It's got much shorter. Actually, when I started 20 years ago, you did often get a whole day with people, and now you often get a request for, can you build my team in 2 hours? And then we move on to the next thing. So it's about finding the right balance of what we do with people and different teams.
Great. I'm actually really interested. I'm reading over your bio here that you have available online. And it says you've designed and conducted numerous training workshops, including leadership skills, leadership development, team leading, team development, conflict management, creative problem solving, cross-cultural teams, cross-cultural management, and customer service. You're all across the board. That's a vast undertaking that you built a career out of. Let's talk about leadership. What do you think are some of the fundamentals of leadership that people might be missing?
Especially, I think I very much focus on leadership of teams. So how do we successfully lead successful teams? And it's interesting one. It's after all the years of doing this and sort of the part of training and leadership development we focus on is what we call the soft skills, how you interact with your team and with your other stakeholders, how you communicate, and very much how you support, how you enthuse, how you motivate other people. And it's interesting because many leaders, especially in the corporate and the industrial world, grew up into being leaders, from a very strong technical background, or an engineer, or a chemist, or whatever you started your career as. You're very successful as an engineer, and then you get promoted and you become a leader, a team leader first. And actually, many of these people, don't have the sort of training or even exposure or experience in that leadership part of the job. They're fantastic at doing the engineering or the chemistry. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we try to do is sort of help those people be successful leaders as well as their sort of original profession. And it's interesting. And that's the way we've always done our training from the very beginning and continue to this day, is through experiential learning, experiential education. It's giving people a chance to have a go in a sort of controlled, focused direction with facilitated sort of reviews and feedback to help everybody learn. And importantly, also enjoy the process, as well.
Okay. You say successful leadership. What does that look like to you?
Well, successful leadership means, I think, I always say one of my favorite words in successful leaders and teams actually is the word respect. So the fact that people respect you as a leader. Great. And obviously you respect your team and your peers. But there is, because I always find it that respect is such an important component of obviously building trust. Mm-hmm. And the key, sometimes I find people, sort of get confused between respect and somebody respecting you, somebody agreeing with you. I can totally respect somebody, but still disagree with them, and that's fine. Right. It's the respect is the important part of that relationship and that connection, that communication, to enable someone to be successful in leadership.
Fantastic. Okay, let's shift gears a little bit here and talk about Malaysia, where you are. What's some of the fundamentals of team building there?
Yeah, it's interesting. And you mentioned we do a lot of cross-cultural training and work as well, and it's connected. I mean, I think earlier I talked about sort of the biodiversity of the environment, the natural environment, but we're also, I think, blessed with an amazing diversity of cultures within Malaysia itself, but also we walk all around Asia, and so the incredible mix of cultures, of religions, of people. And one of the great pleasures I get in doing this job is we get to work with teams that are totally diverse, and that of course comes up with many challenges. And I think the products and the programs we run help teams overcome those challenges, basically by building connections and overcoming some of the perceived differences with people. Of course, we're different, but same thing, we can respect, we can still work together, and actually we can be best friends as well. And it's all good. So
what kind of diversity, what kind of diversity are we talking about?
Oh, religious, in Malaysia, just in Malaysia itself as one country, we have many different races. I live in Borneo. There's 50 different tribes of people. Many have their own languages, many different religions. It's a Muslim governed country. But in Sabah, 50% of the population are Christians, and sort of everybody basically gets on, which is the way it should be.
Right.
But you get that in a work environment. Often, many of our sort of corporate clients would be the Asia Pacific region. And so, for example, we might be engaged to run a team alignment or team building session for a sales conference for a big multinational. Obviously, pre-COVID, they brought all those people together in a hotel. There's 200 people from 18 different countries, all working with the same organization, interestingly with the same values and the same, the company has the same values and the same mission, the same goals, but very different people bringing what they can bring to that team. So one of the great successes I've always encouraged organizations to do things like that. If you're going to get people together, do the team building, do the so the bonding, the mixing on the first day. Yeah, and we've done it both ways, and you get an amazing difference just by spending 3 hours, doing one of our, sort of cleverly designed, but also, very engaging, very, very fun activities. You break down so many of those barriers, and you can actually see the difference for the next 2 days of a business meeting of the way people interact.
Fantastic.
Otherwise, it's very common for us to stick with the people we're comfortable with. The Japanese office would hang out at lunch with their colleagues from Japan, and the Koreans from Korea, and the Malaysians from Malaysia, Singaporeans from Singapore. Because that's human nature. Until you find a way to make people more comfortable with each other, then actually you can mix it up, and it's great.
Great, fantastic. Give me 1 second here, David. I got to actually pay some bills, as we say in our part of the world. So speaking of diversity of cultures, let me take a minute to tell you all about Catalyst Team Building Network, an association of team building providers with representatives in over 90 countries speaking more than 20 different languages. The Catalyst Network is widely regarded as the voice of the team building industry. Network members share resources, best practices, and business opportunities. Catalyst partners are learning from each other and pushing the boundaries of what is possible in team building. Catalyst Network members share a common goal of creating highly relevant, socially responsible, good valued experiences for their clients. For more information, please visit catalystglobal.com. The Catalyst Team Building Network, the world's largest network of team building providers. And we're back. Thanks, David. That was a fascinating discussion. I want to get into that just a bit more. What kind of social diversity, or not social diversity, social responsibility focus do you have over there?
There's obviously lots of need in many parts of Asia. As a company, we're very strong with that. I mean, like you mentioned at the beginning, we're very keen collaborator with the B1G1 organization, which is an amazing organization actually based here in Singapore.
Oh, lovely.
And we've worked with them for many years. And the way we sort of integrate that into some of our team building and team activities happens on a few different levels. We have some sort of, for our clients, there's always a very strong push for many organizations, which is great, and we strongly support that. We have a few sort of team activities which are have a CSR component, or I often call it a CSR twist into it. And some of the old, more traditional ones, you're building bicycles and building toys for which then get donated But my sort of take on the team building with the CSR twist has always been, for our clients and what we do team building. So it really still has to be a successful team event,
right,
and get the sort of the objectives achieved in terms of building the team. And the sort of the CSR part is a wonderful plus to that, and it works very well.
Well, just
with B1G1, actually, we also use that instead of giving prizes for competitive events. Nowadays, we give a B1G1 certificate. So the winning team, instead of getting a little something to take home, they get a certificate which says that on their behalf we've provided 25 solar lights to a poor community in Cambodia or something similar. So it's very powerful.
Fantastic. That's really, and I love that there's an immediate show of how it works. That's so rare for a lot of institutions. But let's get a bit more specific. Do you have any specific charities over there that you'd like to work with?
I mean, interesting. We have a couple of things through the B1G1. It's a great organization, so that you can sort of choose to swap many different charities, which is great. More closer to home here in Borneo, we it's a rainforest. A lot of it's been decimated over the last 40 years. So what we've done is sort of try to play a small part in rehabilitating some of the rainforest. So we're lucky to have a adventure center, which is owned by our sister company, Building Expeditions. Okay. And near that, we've sort of adopted a piece of forest and to rehabilitate the tree. So again, very often, on behalf of our clients, we would say, okay, you've got 20 teams playing the activity. We'll literally plant 20 trees in the rainforest for you.
That's amazing.
So it's a way to connect it up, which is very nice.
Lovely. I really enjoy hearing that. I'm very ecologically conscious myself, so hearing that there's someone doing that is so great. That's such a respectable stance to take. Thank you so much for that. But okay, what kind of other events do you like to lead? What are some of your most popular?
We have many. I mean, I was thinking about what's my favorite sort of. What if I had to choose one activity? And it's an interesting thing about it. For me, it creates a little story around the sort of mindset of clients and ourselves when we're doing team building. There's a very old traditional team activity called, we used to call it ball juggle. And you basically throw the ball around, it gets faster and faster, continuous improvement activity. I've been doing it for 20 years. It's still great. But it's just interesting. And because it's great because it produces sort of instant learning and realization for the teams. But it always reminds me of a story that, a number of years ago, we wrote a proposal for a client, and this is the team development program. And one of the activities was ball juggle. It was listed on the program flow. Mm-hmm. And the client came back and said, oh no, we've got a very sophisticated team of, senior leaders. We don't want to do ball juggle. And interesting, my first reaction, actually, of course, they don't actually know, what the activity is. They just know the name, and it's got great learning activities. And so I said, but of course, you're the customer. You're always right. So we'll redo the program, come up with some different activities. So we rewrote the program, and instead of writing ball juggle, we rewrote it called warp speed.
Okay.
And so the client came back, oh, that sounds brilliant. Warp speed sounds really good. And I'm very happy to sign off on that. And of course, it's actually exactly the same activity. We just changed the name from ball juggle to warp speed. And an interesting thought about, branding, I suppose. But, we suggested the activity because it's great, but how you name it and people's perception of things, of course, has a huge impact as well. So that's always a fun one to think about.
Now, you mentioned, as you were discussing the ball juggle, that it's a great instant learning opportunity. Can you define that for my listeners?
Oh, absolutely. For me, there's numbers of levels of learning when we're doing these team activities, but it's always got to be engaging, always got to be fun, but it really should be about the learning all the time. Sometimes our clients are very strongly driven by that. Sometimes it's more on our side to push that directly or subtly for that. But there's lots of ways. As we talked about a lot about the multicultural, multilinguistical teams, right? And one of the other instant learnings I used to do, you have a briefing for a particular activity, and say in one day we're going to do 6 activities, and it's a mixed team. 20% of the team speak English as their first language, 80% of them don't. Mm-hmm. And it's very interesting for us sort of native English speakers who are usually very guilty about this. Yeah. But so the third activity, we give the briefing written in Japanese. and it's very interesting. I mean, 4 of the 10 team members are Japanese who have to read the English on every other one.
Huh.
And it's interesting, the reaction from the sort of the English speakers, and they're quite competitive, when they see, how can we do this? It's in Japanese, or it's in a foreign language. And of course, there's 4 Japanese guys in your team, just ask them to read it.
Yeah.
And I used to call that sort of thing sort of slap in the face learning, because this is the experience that the Japanese guys have every day of their life,
right?
When everything's sent to them in English, and suddenly to put yourself in those groups just for a second is really sort of almost powerful learning that no one expects.
Nice, very nice, and a lovely way to shake up the genuine status quo that might have been there before.
Absolutely. Yes.
So it must be very challenging for your facilitators while they're on site. Do they face any other kind of challenges?
Well, I think, of course. I mean, there's lots of challenges as a facilitator. One of the sort of connected to the sort of cultural thing, many of the wonderful people here in Southeast Asia are naturally not very outgoing, especially around giving direct feedback or challenging somebody else.
Right.
And that sort of, in some ways it's wonderful as well. You don't have the big arguments and fights, but one of the chances of sort of drawing out the learning as a facilitator can be more challenging. And so, obviously we've learned, and we train our facilitators to still successfully facilitate in this world. And instead of just asking a group of 20 corporates, people, tell us what went well and what went wrong to the whole group. If you do that in many groups here, no one will say anything.
Right.
Okay. That doesn't mean they don't know and they don't have great ideas. So then it's about using facilitation tools to draw out that learning, and break into small groups, have a discussion. Ironically, the ball left over from Warp Speed is a great sort of talking ball. You throw that around the circle, and just whoever's got the ball gets to talk, and the rest of us listen. And it's interesting, just by giving people a space or permission to share, it enables them to share wonderful things. And so that's an interesting sort of that little bit of incentive or encouragement, and the space has a powerful impact on that person, and we all benefit from the sharing, of course.
And of course, you're getting yet another example of that respect that you were talking about earlier.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Okay, David, hold on one more time for me, because I want to tell all my team all about what we were talking about earlier. That's B1G1, which can make your business a real force for good. When you're part of B1G1, you bring new purpose, meaning, and relevance to your business by making giving a core of what you do. Unlike conventional giving models, B1G1 helps small and medium-sized businesses achieve more social impact by embedding giving activities in their everyday business operations to create unique giving stories. Every business transaction can impact lives from just as little as 1 cent. So please visit b1g1.com to get started. B1G1, business for good. Okay, David. Let me hear about some of your favorites now. What are some of the favorite events you've ever led or that are coming up for your company?
Yeah, I mean, we have lots. We were one of the founder members or the early members of the Catalyst Network, and I think I looked it up, and it's about 14 years ago we joined with a few companies at that stage, and that's grown into this really incredibly powerful team building network of the best people in the world. I mean, I think it's 50 partners now, so that's been amazing. And part of that is an opportunity to obviously learn and share best practice and ideas, but also some of the great sort of events for that. A couple of my favorite sort of moments or favorite memories in all the years of doing team building. One of the Catalyst products is called Beatswork. It's a samba drumming activity where everybody, all participants, learn specific rhythms, and in just an hour or an hour and a half, they get to play in the band. So that the company has the samba band, and all these sort of people who are fearful of playing music suddenly find themselves having that experience of actually performing.
Right.
But one of my favorite moments in that is one of our Sabahan facilitators here from Borneo, Richard. I've still got this very strong image of him standing in the middle of a stadium in the sports field, and he was conducting 1,500 people, participants, each of whom had a musical instrument, are playing in sync in the stadium in front of him. and what an incredible, and it was basically the whole company, from the drivers and the cleaners to the CEO, were all there in the stadium with an instrument each, literally playing the rhythms together.
Wow.
And really incredible, sort of powerful demonstration of collaboration, and actually, obviously very, very loud collaboration at that time, but collaboration is great.
That's fantastic. Now, of course, we're talking about a brand new world here with COVID-19 just ravaging across the globe. How are you facing this new challenge?
Oh, yeah, as you say, new challenge is the right word. I mean, 5 months ago, we were planning an amazing 2020 with all these fantastic events all around Asia. Be on the plane every week and carrying all the staff and setting up all these things, which that's what we thought we were going to do,
right.
And obviously we're not.
Right. So
that's fundamentally changed in many ways. Actually, ourselves and the Catalyst Network have been working incredibly hard to sort of pivot and reorganize ourselves to be able to offer what we're calling sort of remote team building. Because obviously the teams are still there, but nearly everybody is working from home.
Yeah, and if anything, I think they need to be reminded they're part of a team more now than before.
Absolutely, and it's been interesting because again, it's new for us, and we've come up with some amazing sort of products that still work in terms of that need. And the difference is, I think people don't really realize they need it, as you suggested. I mean, people actually the need to sort of interact a little bit more when we're all sitting at home is actually more than in the office or in the meeting room, where it's much more natural to chat with somebody or do a bit of sharing. So by sort of getting organizations to actually organize, some activities, online. I mean, obviously Zoom and WebEx and everything becomes our world, but you've being able to sort of still create some of that powerful experience for everybody. We had one last week. We did 160 people from a company all online at the same moment, doing an amazing activity. Broke them into teams of 4, and they actually problem solving collaboratively together in these teams at the same time, competing with the other 38 teams. Very interesting. We had 10 Asia building facilitators on that program, all of which were sitting at home.
Yeah.
Prior to this, we would have all been on a plane.
Right.
And 160 people would have been on a plane, maybe for 3 days, to get there, have the meeting, get home. There's some interesting things coming out of this as well. So I think even the future is not just going to go back to as it was.
Right.
Lots of learnings for all of us from this as well.
Well, what kind of things? What kind of things are you learning about this? Or from
Well,
this?
I think the fact that, if teams are successful at remote working from home, actually it can be very, very effective. Obviously, it's in some ways it's sort of accelerated maybe something that was sort of starting by tomorrow everybody's working from home, so there's the instant need to think about all these things. And so I think on the sort of stuff we've been trying to do to get people to still, as you suggested, think about, I'm in a team, still communicate a lot and effectively, but actually also be very effective and very efficient in that.
Nice. But we've also discovered that this is really helpful to the environment too. The lack of traffic on the roads, the lack of pollutants in the air. So hopefully people will start to learn that this might be a helpful step to rebuilding the environment. But do you also find that it's helping people to remain connected to their families in this way?
Well, it is, and it is in a very different way. I mean, myself would be a great example. I mean, normally I'd be traveling almost every week. Yeah. And so my family, I'm so lucky. I have a very, very supportive family, and I'm away a lot of the time. I come back at weekends, and so that was the normal life. And obviously I've been in the house for 3 months with them, so hopefully they still want me to be here and not go on a plane. But
I hear you.
But yeah, it's been very different, but it's positive.
I have a 14-year-old daughter myself, and I'm pretty sure she's sick of me by this point.
Yeah, exactly.
David, thank you so much for being on. You've been absolutely amazing. I've really enjoyed talking to you. But let's talk a little bit more, if you don't mind, about you personally. Now, how many kids do you have?
I've got two kids, a 21-year-old daughter who's actually studying in New Zealand, which actually, COVID-19 wise is a wonderful place to be.
Yeah.
So she's been there through that. And I've got a 12-year-old son who's here in Borneo with us.
Oh, lovely. So for those who don't know, where your daughter is, they're pretty much considered COVID-free by this point, aren't they?
That's correct. I think yesterday they announced it's over for them, although they still keep the borders closed, so no one can spoil it.
Sure.
Yes, at the moment, they're doing wonderfully well. But interestingly, started by a very sort of strict lockdown, but also interesting. We talked about leadership earlier. Some very sort of dynamic and respectful and sort of empathetic leadership from the Prime Minister. So very interesting.
Well, raising these kids in a team building career, do you find that helpful? Do you actually wind up using the things you work with and bringing that home to your kids?
To a certain extent, yes. Probably not enough. I mean, they get involved, and so they see us doing it. But you're right. I mean, the risk is you take stuff for granted.
How so?
I think we do. I mean, in terms of the time that's needed to build a good relationship, I'll go and spend all day, persuading people to communicate better together. But then when I come home, will I actually, spend the next 2 hours communicating as well as I can with my family? And so it's those, as you said, the lessons you can learn from that. But I'm very, I'm very passionate about what we do with the family and that my wonderful team at Asia Ability. We've got a small but very loyal and dedicated team, and we try to bring back lots of the things we sort of teach and share to our own teams, and it's very powerful. And interesting, at the moment we've always had an 8:48 meeting every day in the office and the various offices around Asia calling in, and we've continued that through this. So now at 8:48, and every morning, everybody dials in on Zoom, and we still have our 8:48 meeting, so we can connect with all 20 people every morning. Great. So trying to keep the important team stuff going even through these times.
And your team, you said, is built up almost as that same microcosm?
Yes, totally. We've got offices in Singapore, in Kuala Lumpur, in Bangkok, and here in East Malaysia as well. So a complete mix of people, but all passionate team builders.
Great. That is amazing. I would love to be able to experience some of that. Just watching your team for a day, seeing all those different diverse people and how they're working together. That would be inspiring. Well, David, thank you so much for being a part of the show. I really have thoroughly enjoyed talking to you. You're not only are coming from a fascinating part of the world, but you're an excellent communicator about it. So thank you for that. However, I'm being nice to you right now because I'm about to actually I'm going to torture you a little bit. Yeah. We're about to put you on the hot seat in what I call our speed round. Now, just like we do as facilitators and people who work in the industry, just as we do little icebreakers, this is kind of my wrap-up icebreaker for you. The way this is going to work is I'm going to take 60 seconds and I'm going to ask you a bunch of fairly innocuous, ridiculous questions. And your objective is to answer them as quickly as you can without thinking. Just the first words that come to your mind, okay?
Okay.
Great. See, I do this because I think of all those poor business people out there who, when they walk in and they realize, oh, I'm doing a team building thing, they get that sense of dread. So this is a little bit of revenge for them. I hope you don't mind.
Okay.
Great. Once you hear the music, I'll start asking the questions, okay? Here we go. What is your name?
David Powell.
How many kids do you have?
2.
Which one's your favorite?
Both of them.
See, I ask everybody and they always get the same answer. Now, what's the first thing you do when you get home from a trip?
Unpack. My wife's trained me well.
Would you rather spend 5 days exploring Disney or New York?
Oh, New York.
Oh. If you could shop for free at one store, which store would you choose?
Outdoor equipment store.
Nice.
REI.
Very nice. What of your personality traits has gotten you in the most trouble?
I'm being too nice.
Which celebrity chef would you most like to fix you a meal?
Jamie Oliver.
Who's your favorite athlete?
Usain Bolt.
What's your best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Don't give up.
Very nice. Love it. You got 9. That's a little high on the average, but not the best one I've had so far.
I'm sure.
But David, thank you so much for being a part of the show. I have to say, you were a wonderful guest, and I love talking to you. Please, everybody, give one more time a big round of applause, Mr. David Powell. And my team out there, that about wraps it up for me for another episode of Team Building Around the World. If you like this show, please share it with a friend or a colleague, and we'd be grateful if you would subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you find your favorite podcasts and leave us a favorable review. If you don't have anything favorable to say, just shut up about it. Nobody really minds. All past episodes can be found at teambonding.com. So, my friends, I have been Rich Rinnensland. This was Team Building Around the World. And remember, if you're within the sound of my voice, you're on my team now, and I'm on yours. Thanks again, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
It's been said that you learn more about a person in an hour of play than in a year of conversation. So why not put your coworkers to play with the help of the team at Team Bonding? Team Bonding was founded over 20 years ago with one simple question. How can employees have a great time while fostering strong, authentic bonds between people who work together? Their catalog of innovative events includes scavenger hunts, Jeopardy, and much more. Each activity, whether live, virtual, or hybrid, maximizes the impact of team building with an accent on fun. Visit teambonding.com to schedule your event now. Team Bonding, when you want seriously fun results.